G'day guys, and welcome to another installment of Nathan's Beer Reviews. Today the beer in front of me that I'm going to be reviewing for you guys is of course Kilkenny's Irish Ale, a 4.3% alcohol by volume, which is 1 point something standard drink, 1.5 standard Australian drinks in this 440 milliliter can. Up until I bought this can 3 days ago, I knew absolutely nothing about Kilkenny, except that it was an Irish beer. I actually presumed it was just another Irish stout, a direct competitor of sorts to Guinness. So I suppose I was a bit naive and silly thinking that the only beers you can get out of Ireland are stouts. But I suppose thus is the popularity and the popularity of Guinness that everyone just associates Guinness with Ireland and Irish beer, and thus stouts are Irish. Of course they're very famous for their stouts, but obviously they brew other stuff. So yeah, this is actually a red ale, I found out. But the difference is it's actually not a direct competitor per se to Guinness, because it's brewed by Guinness. It is a Guinness product. It is brewed by Guinness, brewed by Diageo in Ireland, distributed in Australia by Lion Beer, Spirits and Wine, Lion Nathan of course, under license from Diageo Australia. Now, I assume therefore Diageo Australia and the Lion Company, who are owned by Kirin here in Australia, have a partnership of sorts, or one owns the other. But yeah, so it's a red ale. Like I said, I've never drunk it before in my life. I have seen it around here in Sydney before. There's a few Irish pubs in the CBD which do sell it. And I've just looked online, and it's whilst Ireland is the primary market for Kilkenny, Australia and Canada are the two largest importers of Kilkenny. There's a few Irish pubs, which big Irish pubs here in Sydney CBD, which do sell it on tap, but I've never felt the inclination to buy it for whatever reason on nights out. According to Wikipedia, Kilkenny is available on tap in many Australian and New Zealand bars and pubs, where it is served as with locally brewed draft Guinness on a mixture of 70% nitrogen and 30% carbon dioxide. It's popular. It's considered a fairly popular beer. Rate Beer gives it a 25 overall and a 33 for the style, whilst Beer Advocate give it a 3.43 out of 5, giving it an okay rating. So I suppose it does get around, and I suppose it has some excellent and elements to it. With all that in mind, I'm keen to try it now. I picked this up at BWS here in Sydney's southwestern suburbs, one of the BWS bottle shop stores. It was actually on special. It was a counter special, and they were selling $3 cans of it. So I picked up for $3 at the BWS. Just the one can, just so I could try it. If I like it, I can go back and get a 4-pack. I think 4-packs go for about $20 here in Australia. So not a bad deal there. The best before date is the 13th of the 6th, 2019, so I'm not entirely sure why they had it on special. There's still a good 6 months of it still in date, so I'm going to pour it into a Guinness glass. I don't know, is that sacrilege? I would have just poured a stout into a Guinness glass, but I thought, given it's brewed by Guinness, using a Guinness pint glass would be appropriate for it. As I have mentioned, it is a nitrogen ale, so we're about to see some beer porn here. As we said, the nitrogen cascading effect from the top of the can. So let's crack it open without further ado. It's very humid here in Sydney the last few days. We've had some terrific thunderstorms. Ooh, hello. Hello. She's a frothy one. Hello. Oh dear. I've literally just popped that over the top of the pint glass just so I can not spill any over my deck. Oh well, so let's pour it in. Yeah, it's been very humid here in Sydney the last few days. We've had some terrific summer thunderstorms. Don't know if this is going to be the most thirst quenching of beers. but we shall see. Pretty rough pour. I've sort of just dumped it in the Guinness pint there, but it was sort of already frothed up because I had been playing around with it for a bit. So as you can see, that gorgeous nitrogen cascading effect. It's definitely not as dark as a Guinness, and a red ale does seem somewhat appropriate. Gonna let it settle and while we watch the cascading effects. But that copper sort of really lovely orangey red copper appearance is really starting to shine through the bottom of the beer now. It's still quite hazy from that nitrogen effect, but we're starting to see that gorgeous cream nitrogen head, of which there's 1 to 2 fingers on, just depending on how fat one's fingers are. So yeah, it pours, cascading, the nitrogen's pretty much done its thing now. But yeah, so it pours a rich orangey red, almost light ruby appearance, holding it up to the light. It's not the clearest of beers. There is a little bit of haze to it, although it is not a hazy beer per se because it is quite filtered. I think that's just the last remnants of the nitrogen floating around the glass. But it does look quite appetizing with that ruby red sort of copper orange appearance going on, and of course topped with that classical cream head, which is very appetizing. The smell, it smells like a beer. Surprise, it is beer. Unlike Guinness, where you're getting those really dark, you know, toasted, roasty malt notes, and you know the toffee and the caramel, you're getting a lot more of a typical ale, pale ale. Well, not pale ale, but definitely an English style ale smell to it. Definitely getting a bit of caramel. You know, those toffee, caramel, malted barley. Very sweet notes to it. There's some grassy, hoppy notes going around in there as well. And it looks like we're going to get another thunderstorm this afternoon. I'm pretty sure I can hear some rumbles of thunder off in the distance. So, yeah, look, for a very humid Sydney day, I think this is actually going to go down a lot better than I first imagined. So, it smells quite nice, so cheers, guys. The nitrogen effect, the fly decides to attack me. The nitrogen effects of these Irish ales and stouts give the appearance a really flat sort of mouthfeel. There's little to no carbonation whatsoever in the beer, and it's actually not a bad thing. It just makes for a really, really smooth mouthfeel. I mentioned on my Guinness video that if you could sum up Guinness in a word, it's smooth. Well balanced is another term for Guinness, and Kilkenny follows through with that. It's very sweet. Actually, it's a bit too sweet for my liking. It's got that real, almost chewy appearance about it. Chewy mouthfeel about it. There's a hint of bitterness in there, and a hint of sort of hoppy notes going on, almost like a hop extract. I wouldn't say it's necessarily fresh hops, but it's definitely like a hop extract sort of flavour going on. It's really sweet. It's quite syrupy. It's almost got a syrupy, chewy mouthfeel to it. I suppose it is somewhat refreshing. It's actually not as refreshing as the smell, for me, sort of appeared it was going to be, but Yeah, it's a bit sweet for my liking. It's just got a very syrupy, very thick mouthfeel, and on a really humid day like it is today, we've just had a breath of wind pop up. But we're getting a storm rolling in from the east. They normally come from the west, but it's coming from the east today. Yeah, it's just a bit too sweet and syrupy and chewy for my liking. Though I can see how on maybe a really cold winter's night, this could go down really, really nicely, you know, by a roaring fire, or, you know, with a really hearty meal like a beef and Guinness stew or something. That said, it's not terrible. It is drinkable, but it's not something I would necessarily consider sessionable. Even on really hot days, I find Guinness can be very, very sessionable and very, very refreshing. Whereas this one's just a little bit too, you know, heavy in the mouth for a ridiculously hot summer's day, which it is today, a very humid summer's day. That said, it's not a bad beer. I think I might come back and revisit it in about 6 months' time, in the middle of winter, when it's a bit colder here in Sydney. It's just today it's about 32, 33 degrees here in southwestern Sydney, which I think is about, I don't know, it's the high 80s, high 90s in Fahrenheit for my American viewers, and the humidity is extremely high today. And it's just not making it the refreshing beer I'm after today. But that said, it's not a bad beer. It's just not the right beer for the time of year. What would I give Kilkenny Ale? I think in the style of red ale, for me, red ale's also meant to be that little bit more bitter, that little bit more sour. There is an element of bitterness to the beer, but it's just very, very syrupy and very, very sweet, and just not the right beer for the environment and for the climate today. So I'm going to give it a B minus. I can see some very good aspects to the beer, but I think drunk in a much more appropriate climate, it would actually be more enjoyable. So I'll put this one down for a revisit in the middle of winter, you know, June, July, here in Sydney, on a much cooler, temperate day. But yeah, it's just not hitting the spot today. So a B minus for Kilkenny Irish Ale. It's an okay ale, just not something you really would want to be drinking too much of in summer, I don't think, at least in an Australian summer, which is quite humid, and well, it varies between either really effing humid or really effing dry. So cold winter's Irish night probably goes down a lot better. Anyway, cheers guys for watching. I'm going to finish this review, might pop in another one before that storm hits. So yeah, if you enjoyed the view guys, click like, click subscribe. If there's a beer you'd like to see me review and cover, pop it down in the comment section and I'll get around to reviewing it as soon as possible. So again, thanks for watching the review guys, and see you in the next one.